Hey, Shaker. WHGE 95.3 FM coming up. The Open Eye.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression on our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host, Third Eye Optometrist Patrice Gibbs, here to get that third eye open. I got something for you today. Yes, indeed, where everything is going on, it's no wonder. And as we always start, every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. And I think we do that right here on WHGE 95.3. Let me get my disclaimer out the way. Come on, disclaimer.
The views and opinions expressed on the line are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eyes hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
All right. Here we go. Let's get them started. Start right here. Start in Africa. You will never learn this in school. Okay? Africa's area, 30 million kilometers. China's area, 9.6 million kilometers. The U.S. area, 9.8 million kilometers. European area, 10.18 million kilometers. Africa is bigger than all of Europe, China, and United States together. But on most maps, Africa is represented in downsize. This is deliberately done to create the visual effect of a small Africa to manipulate, brainwash, and deceive Africans wherever they are. Africa has 60% arable land. Africa owns 90% of raw material reserves. Okay? Africa owns 40% of the global gold reserve. Hey, Steve. Africa, 33% of diamond reserves. Africa has 80% of coltan's global reserve. That's the mineral for telephone and electronic production. Mainly in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo. Africa has 60% of global cobalt, mineral for car battery manufacturing. Africa is rich in oil and natural gas. Africa, Namibia specifically has the world's richest fish coastline. Africa is rich in manganese, iron, wood. Africa is 3 times the area of China, 3 times the area of Europe, 3 times the United States of America. Africa has 30 million kilometers. Africa has 1.3 billion inhabitants. China has 1.4 billion inhabitants, which means Africa is subpopulated. The arable lands of the Democratic Republic of Congo are capable of feeding all of Africa. And all of Africa's arable land is a core to feed the whole world. The DRC has important rivers that can illuminate Africa. The problem is that the CIA, Western companies, and some African puppets destabilized the Democratic Republic of Congo for decades. After the death of Patrice, Africa is a culturally diverse continent in terms of dance, music, architecture, sculpture, etc. Africa accommodates 30,000 medicinal recipes and herbs that the West modifies in its laboratories. Africa has a young population that should reach 2.5 billion by the year 2050. Africa is the future. WHGE 95.3 FM, Open Eye. Hey, Warren, I see you, bro. All right, moving right along. Moving right along on the Open Eye here. All right. What did we learn? Well, we learned about the founding fathers. They told us from the cradle to the classroom, from the pledge to the textbook, from the monument to the dollar bill, that the so-called founding fathers were geniuses, brilliant men of vision, noble architects of freedom. We were told to salute them. We were told to honor them. We were told to celebrate their birthdays like they were prophets sent from God. But listen, pull the mask off. Tear the marble away, and what do you see? Monsters, slave masters, men who wrote liberty with one hand while chaining Africans with the other. Washington, Jefferson, Madison. They didn't see us as human. We were their property, their livestock, their pets in the backyard, while they dined on fine china and sold our children like cattle. And yet, we are forced to walk their boulevards, attend their schools, bow beneath their monuments, and teach our children to worship their names. That's not history. That's indoctrination. That's brainwashing disguised as education. That's white supremacy in a powdered wig. So I gotta ask you, how many Jews would celebrate Adolf Hitler Day? None. Not a single one. It would be unthinkable. But black people in America, we are commanded every day to honor the architects of our chains. They carved their faces in the mountains. They put their names on streets. They printed their portraits on money and told us this was patriotism. But let's be clear, the founding fathers were not liberators of all mankind. They were architects of bondage, designers of death, masters of a system that still haunts this nation. And until America tells the truth, until America rips the mask off its myths, this land will never be the land of the free. Because freedom for some built chains for others. WHGE 95.3 FM, Open Eye. right, all right. Yeah. Indoctrinated here. This from, started out from Monitor by Nation. Okay. Education is the most elegant prison ever built. I like that. I like how she put that, sister. Yeah. They call it good schooling, but what they really mean is how well can you conform? Not how far can you imagine. See, Einstein warned us. The goal of education is to train the mind to think, not to obey. But what do our schools do? From New York to Nairobi, from London to Lagos, they clap for the obedient child and they crush the questioning one. You raise your hand and ask why, detention. You think outside the box, punishment. You refuse to bow to the system, they brand you a problem. And so the classroom becomes the cell. Diplomas hang like paintings on the wall. Tests are the iron bars. And failure is the guard that keeps you in line. And listen, real education don't knock you down, it sets you on fire. It don't train you to follow orders, it dares you to rewrite them. It don't make you a prisoner in a cap and gown, it makes you free. A rebel scholar, a truth teller, a mind too dangerous to cage. On teaching, this is from the poet Khalil Gibran. Then said a teacher, speak to us of teaching. And he said, no man can reveal to you aught but that which already lies half asleep in the dawning of your knowledge. The teacher who walks in the shadow of the temple among his followers gives not of his wisdom, but rather of his faith and his lovingness. If he is indeed wise, he does not bid you to enter the house of his wisdom, but rather lead you to the threshold of your own mind. The astronomer may speak to you of his understanding of space, but he cannot give you his understanding. The musician may sing to you of the rhythms which is in all space, but he cannot give you the ear which arrests the rhythm, nor the voice that echoes it. And he who is versed in the science of numbers can tell of the regions of weight and measure, but he cannot conduct you thither. For the vision of one man lends not its wings to another man. And even as each one of you stands alone in God's knowledge, so much each one of you be alone in his knowledge of God and in his understanding of the earth. Yeah. WHGE 95.3 FM, Open Eye. Patrice Gibbs here on Open Eye. All right. I blame Biden. What's his name? Merrick Garland. All right. They didn't do their job. Jair Bolsonaro, the former president of Brazil, refused to accept a fair democratic loss. He peddled lies of fraud, schemed to claim the power illegally, and whipped his mob into attacking Brazil's capital. But Brazil didn't play games. They didn't wring their hands, make excuses, or hide behind norms. They barred Bolsonaro from ever running again. They dragged him into court and they sent his ass away for 27 years. That's what a nation does when democracy is threatened. That's what accountability looks like. Meanwhile, in America, Donald Trump tried the same playbook: deny, deflect, incite, unleash chaos on the U.S. Capitol. And what did America do? America let him run again. America let him turn a coup attempt into a campaign rally. It's pathetic. Your own damn fault. Brazil showed the world how to defend democracy. We showed the world how to let a traitor walk free. Watch out saying we with your French ass self. Hey, Sister D, Lady D, I see you. Yeah. And that's when you find yourself in danger of losing your freedoms and you let a traitor run free. We didn't seem to learn a goddamn thing from the Civil War, when we let the traitors of the Confederacy walk free. Now what we got? ABC fires Kimmel for mocking Trump. CBS fires Colbert for mocking Trump. ABC fires Moran for slamming Stephen Miller. MSNBC fires Dowd for calling out hate speech. Meanwhile, over at Fox, they protect Brian Kilmeade, whatever his name is, as he calls for Nazi-style executions of the homeless. He did that right on there, just kill him. This is not balance. This is not journalism. This is corporate media bowing to authoritarian power. Damn. The double standard is staggering. Punishment for truth tellers, protection for hate mongers. Silence for those who mock fascism. Megaphones for those who praise it. Make no mistake, the receipts are clear. The Trump regime knows exactly what it's doing. It's weaponizing media consolidation. It's silencing dissent. It's normalizing hate. It's building the propaganda machine that every dictatorship requires. And here's the deeper betrayal. Free speech is not optional. A free press is not decorative. They are democracy's heartbeat. They are the first line of defense. Without them, the Constitution is just a hollow shell. Without them, liberty is just a slogan. Edward R. Murrow knew the truth. He stood tall in the age of McCarthy. He risked everything to confront lies with courage. He reminded us that we cannot defend freedom abroad while deserting it at home. Murrow's words were a warning then. They are a warning now. And remember how a real president once responded to satire. Remember the Smother Brothers? The Smother Brothers actually apologized to President Lyndon B. Johnson for their sharp jokes. Did he demand their firing? Did he call them enemies? Did he unleash mobs against them? No. LBJ wrote back with humility. And I quote, "It is part of the price of leadership of this great and free nation to be the target of clever satires. You have given the gift of laughter to our people. May we never grow so somber or self-important that we fail to appreciate the humor in our lives." That's leadership. That's humility. That's respect for freedom. That is how a president responds to satire, with grace, not vengeance. Contrast that with today, a regime that lashes out at comedians, a regime that bullies the press, a regime that calls truth the enemy. And contrast that with corporations that fire the brave, corporations that shelter the dangerous, corporations that choose profit over principle. Corporate media has failed us. It has forgotten Murrow's warning. It has rejected Johnson's wisdom. It has chosen cowardice over courage. History will not remember them as fair. History will not remember them as objective. History will remember them as collaborators. Collaborators who sold out free speech for ad dollars. Collaborators who traded away democracy for access. Because when democracy is on trial, and make no mistake, it's on trial today, neutrality is not an option. Silence is not an option. Yeah, the price of truth may be high, but the cost of surrender is incalculable. What America needs right now is courage. The courage of Murrow, the humility of Johnson, the voice of a press that refuses to bow. Because democracy doesn't survive on comfort. It survives on confrontation. It survives on accountability. It survives on truth. And in this hour, with freedom on the line, the question is simple. Will we bow to fascism, or will we stand and fight and speak with courage? WHGE 95.3 FM. Open eye. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM. Patrice Gibbs here on the Open Eye. Let's keep it moving. I have to wonder, I've written and spoken on this. How could you be a conservative? Because to me, you call me a conservative, but they got a lot of punch in your mouth. You talk about bereft of ideas. There are no right-wing movies. There's no right-wing art. There are no right-wing protests worth remembering. There's no marches that shook the earth, no songs that carry movements, no vision, no future. Stand for nothing. Even your favorite stories ain't yours. You cheer for Star Wars not knowing you're cheering for rebels fighting the Empire, and the Empire is you. You swallow the Hunger Games without choking on the truth, not realizing that Panem is America, not realizing the Capitol is the system you defend. Right-wing politics has no blueprint, no plan, no solutions, just scapegoats. Same tired script, decade after decade. Immigrants are still in our jobs, deport them. Women want too many rights, silence them. Black folks want justice, lock their ass up. Pick a group, demonize them, and call that politics. But that ain't politics. That's cowardice. That's fear wearing a flag. And don't tell me make America great again. Great for who? When was America great for women who couldn't even open a bank account without a man until the 1970s? When was it great for black people who bled just for the right to vote within living memory in my lifetime? When was it great for native nations whose children were kidnapped, whose lands were stolen, whose stories were erased? Great again is just code for keep it the same. Preserve the bubble, protect the privilege, guard the comfort of a few, and sacrifice the many. The right doesn't want change. The right doesn't want justice. The right doesn't want progress. The right only wants control. Control of bodies, borders, control of the truth. But hear me. Hate can't build. Fear can't heal. Privilege can't last forever. The future will belong to those who cling to the past. The future, excuse me, let me say that again. The future will not belong to those who cling to the past. The future belongs to those who create and those who fight for something greater than themselves, and to those who love enough to build a world worth living in. Wake up. WHGE 95.3 FM. Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM. Patrice Gibbs here, hosting Open Eye. Okay. I'd like to thank my good friend, Sister Sherry Bryson, for this. This person posts, this right-winger, something dumb coming up. They ask, white woman, how many black women are we supposed to have in our lives when you're 6 to 7% of the population and mostly in a few large cities? Let us know the number that makes us anti-racist so we can go try and make fake friendships. The answer is 0 from Dr. Stacy Patton, who responded to this. Nobody is asking you to go out here collecting black women like we're some damn Pokemon cards. That's not allyship, that's objectification. You're trying to flip the script so racism becomes about demographics and friend quotas instead of what it really is, power and structural violence. You reduce black women to a math problem, a statistical inconvenience, and then turn around and play the victim of some imaginary, impossible demand. That's the dodge. That's the performance. Here's the truth. Basic human decency doesn't require a quota. It requires humanity. If you think treating people with respect hinges on the number of black women in your phone contacts, you already told on your racist ass self. Nobody needs you to manufacture fake friendships. What's required is dismantling systems of harm, checking your own biases, and not reducing black women to props in your moral math equation. That's what you call going upside her head, or the racist ass. Now, of course, we know what happened over a week ago. Charlie Kirk was murdered. And of course, those of us that have no empathy for an evil, racist son of a bitch are facing criticism. Oh, you got to be more civilized. The hell with that. And they come up with this. Let me break it down for you like this. 5 members. 5 members. You got to be careful who you vote for. 5 members of the Congressional Black Caucus raised their hands and pressed that button and voted yes. Yes, to honor Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, Mr. Racism in a Suit, Mr. Fear-mongering for profit, Mr. Let's make white grievances great again. And among those 5, House Minority Leader himself, Hakeem Jeffries. Now tell me how we're supposed to trust them. How are we supposed to believe in leadership that bows down to honor a man who built his career on hating us? See, this is the pattern. They come to our communities at election time, shake our hands, kiss our babies, recite the language of struggle. Then wrap themselves in the legacy of civil rights like it's a campaign march. And when the roll call hits, when the test comes, they don't side with the people. They side with power. They side with appearances. They side with the enemy. It's not about Democrats or Republicans. No. It's about principle. And too many of our so-called leaders would rather betray principle than risk being called divisive. They fear headlines more than they fear selling us out. And here's the question. Who do they really serve? Because if you can stand tall and vote to honor Charlie Kirk, if you can smile while validating someone who spits venom at black communities every single day, then you ain't serving us, you serving them. And that, family, is why we don't trust them. And we shouldn't. Especially considering what's going on right now. I'll tell you. I want to thank Sister Tabitha Speaks. Back in 2021, the Washington Post dropped a story that cut like a blade through the myth of progress. It said this plain. Since 2000, there have been at least 8 suspected lynchings of black men and teenagers in Mississippi. 8. 2 decades into the new millennium, and the strange fruit was still hanging. 8. According to court records, 8. According to police reports, that was in 2021. Here's the update they won't print. 2 more names need to be carved into that list. Delta State University, not a HBCU, majority white. And on this campus, in the middle of its grounds, a black student was found hanging from a tree. His name was Damar Travion Trey Reed, 21 years old, full of tomorrow, cut down in the present tense. Authorities said no foul play involved, but the whisper spread like wildfire. Arms broken, legs broken. And if that's true, tell me, how does a man with shattered limbs tie the rope, climb the branches, and hang himself? Deputy Coroner Murray Rourke claimed no such evidence. But listen, hear it as well. Black men do not willingly hang themselves from trees. Point blank, period. And yet the investigation lingers, stalling, dragging, waiting for the silence to settle over his name. Now the second, Corey Zukis, 36 years old, found hanging in a wooded patch by the Ameristar Casino in Vicksburg. Coroner confirmed it. Then the story disappeared. A man erased in the margins, his death whispered as rumor, never spoken as outrage. And let me say it again. Black men do not willingly hang themselves from trees. Connect the dots. Since the murder of Charlie Kirk, 12 HBCUs went on lockdown after terroristic threats. And now, 2 more black men swinging in Mississippi air. This is no coincidence. This is history repeating. The rope still coiled in America's hand. And so we chant the refrain that has haunted us for generations. Southern trees still bear strange fruit. Blood on the leaves, blood at the root. Mississippi soil soaked in sorrow. And we are still counting the bodies. WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs. WHGE 95.3 FM. Hope you're enjoying the Open Eye. In November of 2024, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, then under the Biden administration, uncovered that Navy Federal Credit Union had been systematically defrauding its members. The victims were not Wall Street investors or casual customers. They were service members, veterans and their families, the very people Navy Federal claims to serve. The scheme was straightforward and ruthless. Fraudulent overdraft fees and deceptive money transfer charges. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau ruled that these practices were unlawful and reached a settlement to return $95 million to the military families who had been cheated. The thing is, nobody went to jail, and they should have. But when Donald Trump retook power, he installed Russell Vought, a Project 2025 architect, as head of the CFPB. Almost immediately, Vought and Trump moved to cancel the settlement. The promised $95 million in restitution was rescinded, stripped away from families who had already paid the price of both service and fraud. This decision is not just a policy change. It's a betrayal. It tells the men and women who defend this country that under Trump, corporate profits will always come before their well-being. It declares that in Trump's America, soldiers and veterans can be used, cheated, and discarded without consequence. At its core, the cancellation of this settlement is a clear message. The government is no longer on the side of the people in uniform. It is on the side of the corporations that exploit them. The veterans need to remember who you swore an oath to, or what you swore an oath to. You swore an oath to the Constitution, not to some tangerine tyrant wannabe. The hell's wrong with you? So when you're out there attacking the populace, remember, the very person that set these orders don't give a damn about you or the citizens that you've been sent to attack. Welcome to America. Yeah. The land where the military budget towers over nations like a skyscraper casting shadows across the earth. America spends more than China, Russia, India, Britain, France, Japan, and Saudi Arabia combined. Get this thinking. That's not defense, that's obsession, that's addiction. And yet, in this land of so-called abundance, 1 in 5 children goes to bed hungry every single night. Tell me, what kind of security is that? What good is a missile when a child's stomach is empty? What good is a tank when a classroom has no books, no heat, no hope? Budgets don't lie. Budgets tell us what we value. And America's budget screams the truth. War is worth more than children. This is the contradiction. The richest nation in human history, where the Pentagon gets billions, while children scrape for crumbs. Welcome to America. Welcome to the empire of misplaced priorities. Welcome to the altar of the military-industrial complex, where children are the sacrifice. This is the open eye, and I'm telling you, until we open all 3 eyes, this nightmare will keep repeating. I'm Patrice Gibbs. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. Nothing busts the myth of American greatness faster than a passport stamp. American exceptionalism with a joke. Step outside. Get on a train in Europe. Country to country, cheap, fast, smooth. Here, we ain't even got one bullet train to cross this so-called greatest nation. Cars or credit cards. That's the only way to move. And meanwhile, 50 million Americans hungry. 18 million of them children. Children, y'all. And yet we got the biggest economy on earth, 800 military bases worldwide. And we can't feed the children at home. That's the flex. That's the pride. Really? So if you still believe the hype, the chance of USA, do yourself a favor. Get on a plane. Go to Tokyo, Seoul, or Shanghai. And see what life looks like when governments invest in people, not just billionaires. Ride trains that glide like science fiction. Walk streets that ain't war zones. Breathe air that don't choke you out and nothing come back. If you come back. Now here's the truth. We're the most ignorant, arrogant, at the exact same time. Voting in leaders who rob us blind. Telling ourselves it's freedom. While freedom slips through our fingers. Confusing empire with excellence. War with wealth. Chaos with choice. And don't wonder why the media keeps spitting venom at China, at Japan, at South Korea. They can't afford for you to see better. Because once you see it, you'll know this mess ain't normal. It ain't normal. It ain't normal to step over homeless bodies. That's not normal. It ain't normal to bury kids from weekly school shootings. That's not normal. It ain't normal to watch fentanyl eat entire cities alive. No. They need you blind, angry, and scared. But travel tells the truth. And the truth is, America ain't the best. America's far behind. Yeah. Far behind. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. All right. Patrice Gibbs here on Open Eye. Yeah, it's something. I come from a family of people with open eye. I'm very fortunate to have been raised in the environment, in the family that I was raised in. My mother named me Patrice after Lumumba. Her mother injected the name Frederick after Douglas, Patrice Frederick Gibbs. My mother was a Pan-Africanist before most people knew what Pan-Africanism was. Her mother was a second-generation Garveyite. Her grandfather, a father of Marcus Garvey, according to family history, was the man that filed the papers for the Black Star Line. I can remember coming home from school, about 10, 12 years old, Went in the basement to get my bite. You know, there were cots in the basement and non-perishable food. We didn't put food in the basement. We had a kitchen and a pantry. Because our house was a safe house for black revolutionaries like the Black Panthers. I can remember white men in suits coming to talk to my grandmother, my great aunt, about their activities. I think my family probably been under surveillance since the 20s. How long have black people been under surveillance? They've been watching us for over a century. I'm talking about black people. We're 14% of the population, but somehow we show up in over 40% of FBI domestic surveillance files. You don't spend that kind of money watching people you're not afraid of. This is not paranoia. This is history. Declassified, documented, admitted. In Marcus Garvey in the 1920s, his crime was black pride and self-determination. Hoover built his career tearing Garvey down. COINTELPRO in the 50s and 60s, the stated mission not to observe, but to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, and otherwise neutralize. Their words, not mine. They forged letters to settle distrust. They planned in informants to push violence. They sabotaged families, jobs, reputations. And when disruption wasn't enough, they killed. They killed Fred Hampton, 21 years old, feeding kids breakfast, shot in his sleep. 21. Yeah. Fast forward, the tools got sharper. Stingrays vacuum our phones. Facial recognition misidentifies black faces 10 to 100 times more than white ones, but still gets deployed. During the George Floyd protests, they flew drones, tapped phones, ran military surveillance on U.S. citizens exercising constitutional rights. And here's the kicker. The methods tested on us are now used on everyone. Predictive policing, social media monitoring, mass data collection. The black community was the beta test. Now it's the operating system for America. Why? Because they know something about us we sometimes forget about ourselves. They know that when we organize, we don't just reform, we transform. When we boycotted buses in Montgomery for 381 days, okay, boycott is not exercise in emotional satisfaction for a couple of days. It's the long game. That's why we boycotted Montgomery for 381 days and we nearly collapsed an entire city system. When we marched, voted, sang, and demanded, we cracked open the Constitution and forced this nation to grow. 14%. We're 14% of the population, but we have been the engine of every expansion of freedom this country has ever seen. Don't make no mistake about that. That's why the files are so thick. That's why the surveillance never stops. And here's the truth. Surveillance is weakness. You don't build a billion-dollar machine to track people who don't matter. Their fear is proof of our power. Every database, every wiretap, every drone is a confession that we can move the ground under their feet. So the real question isn't why they're watching. The real question is what happens when we stop being afraid of their surveillance and start using our power anyway. Because when we do, history shows we don't just change America. We change the world. Yeah. What we got here? All right. Yeah. We change the world. WHGE 95.3 FM. Open Eye. All right. Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist here. Man, time flies, don't it? Yeah. Yes, it does. How many of you are comfortable raising your fists and shouting Black Power? You even understand it. You know what it is. Okay, it's beyond finances. Let me tell you about the concept of Black Power. They ask, what is Black Power? They think it's complicated. They think it's some secret code, a hidden formula locked in books and speeches. Then listen to me. Black Power is simple. Say it with me, simple. Black power means no more, no less than the right to determine your own destiny. That's it. That's all. That's everything. Where does it start? It starts right where you live. Who runs your schools? Who owns the corner store? Who polices your street? We do. We decide what history your children read. Decide what future your children see. We do. That's Black Power. It's not hate. It's not domination. It's not destruction. It's creation. It's liberation. It's elevation. It's saying we will not let anybody else define us. We will not let anybody else decide for us. We will not let anybody else deny us. John Henry Clark said it best. Black power is the right to our own destiny, to build our institutions, to circulate our dollars, to teach our truth, to preserve our story, to protect our children. Black power is not just a chant. It's not just a slogan, it's a mandate, it's a lifestyle, survival, it's revival. So when they ask, what is Black power? you look them dead in the eye and say, it's the audacity to be free, the authority to be whole, the right to be black and control our own soul. I'm Patrice Gibbs. WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs. This is The Open Eye. Well, time flies, I tell you, because that hour sure went by. Yeah. And I always tell you, I hope you learned something. Yeah, I hope you did, because I learned something before I got here. I don't lead you to my wisdom, but I hope I'll open your mind to your own wisdom and understanding. And as we always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. This has been Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your third eye optometrist, Patrice Gibbs. Thanks for joining us. All right. And as I always tell you, global African supremacy. Africa is the future. It's coming, y'all. Peace.